I saw this yesterday. I was waiting for the, I'm not going to say the other shoe to drop. How about the gavel to drop when Judge Claudia Wilkin in, the Northern California District Court said, you know what? I'm not approving the House versus the NCAA settlement because you all didn't do what I asked you to do and modify the roster element of that agreement so you would just grandfather in current athletes so they were not harmed. It wasn't that hard. And the NCAA and the Power 5 conferences said, nope, we ain't doing it. And she said, well, you're going to have to. Tarun Sharma, TK Sharma Law on Twitter, who is here without his Mets cap on, and we just swept the series from the Phillies. All right, never mind. We've won 7 in a row. We'll talk about that another time. I'm not surprised because when she told them, just do this and I will approve it, and they said the same day, yeah, we're not going to do that. I'm like, I don't understand what you're doing, but as it turned out, she was serious. She didn't approve it. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. And I think you're exactly right. And we previewed both of these positions when I was here a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Both that Judge Wilkin would not be one to be messed with. They weren't going to sneak it by her. But at the same time, that settlement agreements require a lot of cooperation between the parties and a lot of giving ground, and that it may be difficult to get that sort of agreement. But I don't know that that's what necessarily happened here. I think the plaintiffs are in favor of some sort of grandfathering provision. I think that even Grant House has said that he doesn't love the idea of roster limits, and he's the named plaintiff.
Yeah.
But this is something that I think schools have pushed for at some level for quite some time, and the reason why this has been sort of a sticking point.
Tarun Sharma, TK Sharma Law on Twitter. He founded and runs the sports and sports law and NIL clinic at the University of Minnesota. You can catch him on the NIL Hour on Conduct Detrimental, the podcast. He also does a Mets podcast. Again, we're going to have to talk about that down the road. Coaches whined a lot about the losing all of the walk-ons, especially in like football. Notoriously has dozens of walk-on players. They help in practice. They fill out the roster. They can have like 120 players on a sideline in a home game. And this was going to go away. The walk-on was going to go away. It was initially going to be replaced. I guess it will be replaced ultimately by more scholarship players, which clearly the bigger schools were all about. We can get another, 15 or 25 players on scholarship because it goes from 85 to I think 110 or maybe even 115 for football. That was cool, but it was going to come at the expense of some walk-ons, and this was a big deal in other sports as well. Why couldn't they come to I don't even know how to, where to ask the question. How couldn't they figured this out? It doesn't seem like that heavy a lift to allow these rosters to gradually step down.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot at stake here. You think about our Olympic prowess, the reason why every 2-4 years we get together and say USA and beat all of the other countries in the medal count. It's because our university systems have prepared those student athletes. That's money that's coming from the universities to prepare those athletes to compete. And I agree with you. It seems like a no-brainer, but at the same time, everything comes down to money and who the most powerful voices in the room are. And look, neither of us are privy to those conversations that are going on, whether they're briefings between the two sides or internally. But I agree with you. It seems like just from a PR perspective that you would want to take this easy win, even if it costs more in the short term. You know that eventually you're going to have some sort of collectively bargained agreement.
Right.
I think that maybe you want a little bit more public support for your positions and for people to think that you're looking out for the best interest of the sport as a whole.
Public support. What? That's something the NCAA has no concept of. Tarun Sharma at TK Sharma Law on Twitter.
Well, yeah, and can I say one more thing
Sure.
on that? Look, for the last several years, they've been desperate for some sort of federal antitrust
Right.
carve out that was going to protect them, akin to what baseball has. Baseball got theirs because they were America's pastime. It was the most popular sport. But not just that, everyone loved baseball. They thought that the people who were running it were looking out for the best interests of baseball. I don't think that people feel that way about the NCAA or the Power Four conferences if they reshape themselves. And I do think that that's important because if those individuals are lobbying their own congressional representatives to say, hey, like, let's help the NCAA out, let's get some sort of better system. Look, there's so many people who are frustrated with how the system currently operates.
Right.
And still none of those people are like, let's get the NCAA a little bit more power. It's like, yeah, everything is terrible, and also we don't want the NCAA to be the ones that are in charge of fixing it.
Tarun Sharma, TK Sharma Law, is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. All right, so the next step is the two parties have 14 days to, through a mediator, hammer out an agreement. She named the mediator as a professor, and if they can't figure that out, we're headed to trial, pre-trial, and then she's setting a trial date. That doesn't sound like a good idea for the NCAA, no?
No, not at all. And not just meeting with the mediator, but also meeting with the two attorneys that were representing parties who were objecting to the settlement. So at least having those voices in the room to be able to collaborate and hopefully come up with some sort of agreement. But yeah, a trial I think would be a disaster. I think the NCAA knows that as well. Judge Wilkin in particular has not shown a willingness or any sort of sympathy to the NCAA's positions on these matters dating back to O'Bannon. And so I don't think that they want to find themselves in a trial where there could possibly be treble damages. And you've already had this protracted settlement conversation. Not that that could be admitted for any sort of wrongdoing, but there's a lot out there.
Right.
And I just don't think that they're going to find themselves on the winning side there.
So you say the NCAA knows that it might be bad for them. I'm not sure they really do because they have pushed the judge to this point. So talk to me about numbers here before we have to say goodbye. Tarun Sharma, TK Sharma Law on Twitter. The settlement was like, what, $2.8 billion, right, over 10 years. What number could we be looking at if they go to trial and the NCAA and power leagues lose?
Yeah, more than that. Maybe 10.
And then that would be times 3, correct?
Yeah, and then you could see that actually bankrupt the entire system because right. I don't think that they have that amount of money on hand to be able to pay it. The settlement is their only way forward. And then even beyond that, we've discussed this, but who even knows whether this is a lasting settlement? That $2.8 billion is for back pay. You're now creating a system and a set of rules that is binding student athletes, Judge Wilkins said, who are currently out there playing kickball, 8 and 10-year-olds. I'm not sure that we're getting the sort of stability that we're looking for here. But this is better for the NCAA than what they've had. It gives them a little bit more of a leg to stand on, and it kind of kicks the can down the road in a way that is maybe more stable, I guess. That allows them to continue to do their lobbying efforts, but saying, "Hey, well, the court recognized that we could do stuff like this."
One more thing. There were 2 things that the judge asked them to modify. The one that they refused to modify seemed to be the easier one for me. The second one was she didn't want the kickball, the kids playing kickball on the playground at recess. She didn't want those people, those kids those future athletes to be bound by this settlement. So the harder thing for me is to deal with these things on a year-to-year basis. They had no problem with that. I don't understand. Somebody should take a logic class and pass that along. Am I crazy? Didn't the second part seem more difficult to deal with than the first part?
Well, yeah, I think that they just didn't think that she was totally serious about this.
Oh, good idea.
I think that they felt that, hey, look, we've already started kind of relying upon the idea that this settlement will be passed. All of our member institutions have started operating on this. They've been giving out the licensing agreements to the student athletes. People have gone through entire portal cycles thinking that this is going to be done. And there's 88,000 student athletes who have signed on and only 600 or so objectors.
Right.
Like, of course you're going to pass this. You said it was a good settlement, even though you said not to quote you. Of course it's going to get done. And I think that they didn't take her seriously enough. And it's particularly the NCAA side, because what we've heard is that the plaintiff side is in favor of this, and they're going to have to, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at this point, you're not going to. Somebody said play chicken with a federal judge.
Unbelievable. They tried to stare down Judge F around and find out. And they found out. Tarun Sharma, TK Sharma Law on Twitter, founded and runs the University of Minnesota Sports Law and NIL Clinic. I appreciate your time. Check him out on the NIL Hour on Conduct Detrimental, the podcast as well. We'll talk again, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How about those Mets?
18-7, man. We're unstoppable. It's amazing. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Adam.